Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2nd Maccabees, the 6th chapter. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple of Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers. So they were to change the temple in Jerusalem's name and call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius after their god. And the temple in Gerizim, they were to call that the temple of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. So those of Gerizim desired to have their temple called that, showing you how holy they accepted this Hellenization. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots, right? So they basically were having intercourse with prostitutes in the temple and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. So within the court and everything of the holy place, they were committing these profane activities. And beside that, brought in things that were not lawful, right? Unlawful things, animals and all that, they brought in there. The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or to profess himself to be a Jew at all. So you couldn't even call yourself a Jew or keep the laws. And in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraints to eat of the sacrifices, and these would likely be abominable things that were offered. And when the fast or the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy, and the ivy being like symbolic of what Bacchus was known for, which I think he was called by either the Romans, Dionysus, the god of wine and so on, revelry and all that. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. For there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children, whom, when they had openly led round about the city, so when they caught these women who had circumcised their children, they basically paraded them around the city. The babes, handing at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall. So they basically threw them, or pushed them off the wall, had them basically drop to their death. And others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered by Philip, were all burnt together, because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. So because they intended to keep the Sabbath, when they were caught, they were burned. Now I beseech those that read this book, that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for a chastening of our nation. So as the author interjects here, right, that don't look at this as, don't let it discourage you, right? And this wasn't because the Lord wanted to destroy Israel, but it was punishing us. For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. So he's saying it's a sign of the Lord's mercy when people who do wicked are not allowed to continue for a long time, but are punished immediately, because that's chastisement, that's chastening. All right, which is what the Lord is doing here, as opposed to letting you continue to build up that wickedness in which you wouldn't be chastised, you would be destroyed. For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbeareth to punish, till they come to the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us. See, so the Lord didn't deal with us like he does the other nations, where he waits for their iniquity to hit the max, and then he brings that judgment upon them. lest that being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance of us. See? And therefore he never withdraweth his mercy from us. And though he punish with adversity, yet doth he never forsake his people. But let this that we spoke, or let this that we had spoken, be for a warning unto us. And now will we come to the declaring of the matter in a few words. So basically, he's like, we just wanted to, throw these few words in there, just be as a warning to you. And now back to the story. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. So they basically were forcing his mouth open to put pork in there. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment. He said, you know what? Torment me, do whatever you want, but I'm not eating no pork. And it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things, or as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. So he behaved as one should, who is ready to stand up against the things that are not lawful to do. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision. So they knew him, right? And so since they were in charge of it and they knew him, for that old acquaintanceship that they had, they basically said, look, all right, how about this? We don't want to kill you. We don't want to harm you. So you go and bring some lawful meat and you just eat it to where it looks like you're eating pork, but you're not actually eating pork, such as was lawful for him to use, and to make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. Okay, and I guess, fairly enough, I assumed, I don't think, it is swine's flesh. Yeah, it was pork. Okay, just recalling. That in doing so he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor. So basically, for old time's sake, they didn't want to kill him, so they said, look, we'll give you this alternative here. But he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age, and the excellency of his ancient years, and honor of his gray head, whereon was come, and his most honest education from a child. So he started thinking about all these things, how he lived his whole life. He was raised properly. He was taught in the ways of his God. He's been a good example. It says here, education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by God. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straightways to send him to the grave. He said, look, you wasting your time. You might as well just kill me. For it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble. Dissemble is like to lack of a better word, to do a U-turn. Let's say you make an agreement to do something. If you dissemble, you go back on that. You do the opposite. So he's saying, for somebody his age, with his reputation, he can't stain that and just like do a U-turn on that. Whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 80 years old and 10, that's 90 years old, were now gone to a strange religion. Because he was known for being like a pious, righteous, good example. And in his old age, to turn around and to be, become an apostate, nah, he wasn't going to do that. And so they, through mind hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and moment longer, should be deceived by me. See? So what? Just because I want to live a few, how much more do I even have left? Just a few more years longer, I should do this and mislead them, because they'll think I'm eating pork. And I get a stain to mine old age and make it abominable. Because then now he would die, but he would be known as, then he did this, that, and that. But in the end, he didn't stand firm for the Lord. He gave in, and he, at least they would, in their minds, think that he went off in his old age, right, and ate that pork. For though for this present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, being that you wouldn't kill me because I'll eat this pork, yet, or make it look like I'll eat it, Yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. See? So he's saying, look, this temporary relief or whatever you're offering, it doesn't come anywhere near what the Lord will do to me. So I'm all right. Wherefore now manfully changing his life, or changing this life, I will shew myself such an one as mine age requireth. So one who has lived my life at my age, I'm going to do what somebody in my shoes should do, and leave a notable example to such as be young and die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. So I'm going to be a good example and die for a righteous cause than to pretend, and give a bad example for the youth. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. And they that led him, changing the goodwill they had they bear him a little before into hatred. So what they thought was kindness that they were trying to show him by saying, look, why don't you just bring like some lamb or something and make it look like it's pork, and then you don't got to die. Now they got mad. So that goodwill became hatred now, because the foresaid speeches proceeded as they thought from a desperate mind. So they said, this guy is speaking this out of desperation. Who the hell does he think he is? Matter of fact, you know what? Now we were going to give you this chance, and now F that. You're not getting that no more. But when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord. So they basically whipped him to death. That the Lord that hath the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten. Imagine that, 90 years old, and they beating you to death. But in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. So he's saying outwardly, yeah, I feel this pain, I'm being beaten, but in my spirit, in my soul, I'm good. I'm good. I'm able to suffer these things because of my fear for the Lord. And thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. And hence he's being written about here, right? For the very thing that he stood for. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Maccabees, the 6th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.